Hello, dear friends. Much has been said about energetic parasitation, but few people have been able to define it accurately. I am going to try to do so after consulting many sources of information on the subject. Opinion piece. Louche energy harvesting. It would be an exploitation of living beings. It would be the cruel food for regressive beings. Louche comes from the French louche, which means ladle. It consists in harvesting negative emotional energy. The goal is to maintain a constant soup of fear. This energy is full of adrenaline or negative louche. It is impossible to ascend in a wild environment of cruelty. It is necessary to create a network of compassionate and loving energy. Examples of humane compassions are increasing every day. Slaughter of animals weakens the planetary energy grid. Slaughterhouses are intersection points of ley lines. Stadiums are built on ley lines to increase the harvest. Every minute, 200,000 sentient beings die in the world. The greater the suffering, the more life force leaves the body. China creates an army of hybrid humanoids to conquer the world. First symptoms of the application of the new quantum financial system. Biden signs order for dogs to wear masks and gender change. Sweden cancelled Bill Gates' experiment to darken the sun in face of protests. Let's start. Dark forces still control the energy grid throughout wars and animal sacrifice. As more and more human beings awaken, they realize that negative forces have for millennia harvested life energy from sentient beings on this planet. According to the 2012 portal of the Intelligence Center for the Victory of Light, this energy is filled with adrenaline or negative louche that is constantly released into the ley lines of the planetary energy grid to be amplified and harvested in the lower plasma, etheric or astral realms as food for the parasitic beings that occupy those spaces. Once harvested, this negative energy is reused and directed back into the planetary grid, thus weakening our energy grid and keeping the planet and all its being within a soup of constant fear and other low-frequency states that prevent happiness. Architecture. More recently, the awakening segment of the population is also learning how stadiums, churches, government buildings, museums, famous old buildings, concert arenas, and stages are built at certain ley line intersections to maximize and amplify the energy harvesting effect. The use of human raw emotional expression activities, charging competitive reactions during major sports matches and games for their own negative purposes. However, very few awakening humans are aware that slaughterhouses around the world have also been strategically built at a certain ley line intersection points. The reason is that inside slaughterhouses there is enormous mental, emotional, and physical fear, torment, and pain emanating from sentient beings going throughout the killing process. Every minute, about 200,000 sentient beings are brutally killed for food alone, worldwide, according to a real-time death counter available on a website. These numbers do not include all other forms of animal use and killing. Definition. Louche is a term applied to the collection of negative emotional energy produced by humans and animals that other entities use to feed themselves. It is also used to refer to the energy produced by suffering feeding entities, perhaps a play on the French word louche, meaning a ladle for eating. The investment networks are collecting life force for the collective fields of all Earth's inhabitants and producing dark forces and subtle miasmas. The much sought after etheric energy contained in these fields is called energetic louche by regressive beings. In this context, louche is defined as the emotional energy radiated by animals and humans when they feel threatened, hurt, or killed, resulting in traumatizing pain and suffering that is experienced are recorded in the body, mind, and soul. This trauma and pain is recorded in the earth body itself. For centuries, dark arts, multidimensional occult practices have been developed and exploited throughout the reverse creation code. This has been given to secret societies and institutions for the purpose of mind control and social engineering, to harvest negative emotional energy from the masses. Negative programming. With the current acceleration of the electronic age, which promotes transhumanism and a variety of artificial intelligence technologies, both overtly and covertly exploitation to extract negative emotional energy from humankind is at an all-time high. Our planet is being flooded with negative mind control programming and artificial intelligence transmissions that target the negative ego filters that have infiltrated every fiber of society. This is done to provoke extremely negative emotions and painful trauma from the constant bombardment of harmful images, behaviors, and actions. These programs encourage cruelty, brutality, and violence, which are massively overtaking humankind and the earthly realms at this time. Extremely charged negative emotional energy, such as that achieved during ritual abuse, contains cascades of hormonal adrenaline that flow throughout cellular energy within the human body, blood, and brain. Under such intense extremes of suffering, blood and flesh become charged with a high molecular content, which is highly prized by negative beings and regressive forces. That is why they delight in torture, suicide, and the killing of human beings, especially innocent souls unable to protect themselves. Origin. Robert Monroe, in his book Far Travels, writes about the contact he had with a being of light in an out-of-body experience. The light reportedly told Monroe that when human beings die, their energy is released and harvested by transdimensional beings. The claim is that the universe is a garden created by these beings as a food source. According to Monroe's story, animals intentionally place themselves on this planet to feed on plants and each other, thus releasing the life force on their victims so that it can be harvested. In a predator-prey fight, exceptional energy is produced in the combatants. Bloodshed in a fight to the death conflict releases this intense energy, which light beings call louche. It is also drawn from the unwanted loneliness of animals and humans, as well as from the emotion engendered when a parent is forced to defend the lives of his or her children. Another gentler and most civilized source of louche is the religious worship of human beings in which they surrender their power to an external entity. According to informant Monroe, our creators, the cosmic energy farmers, deliberately equipped animals with devices such as fangs, claws, and super-speed to prolong predator-prey combat, and thus produce more louche. In other words, the greater the suffering, the more life force comes out of the body, and the tastier the energy food for our creators. Ley lines. Ley lines refer to straight alignments drawn between various historic structures and prominent landmarks. The idea was developed in early 20th century Europe, and advocates of ley lines argued that these alignments were recognized by ancient societies that deliberately erected the structures along them. Since the 60s, members of the Earth Mysteries movement and other esoteric traditions have commonly believed that such ley lines demarcate Earth energies and serve as guides for spacecraft, something akin to the acupuncture lines of the human body of Earth's body. The idea of ley lines as straight tracks across the landscape was proposed by the English antiquarian Alfred Watkins in the 20s, particularly in his book The Ancient Straight Path. He argued that the straight lines could be drawn between various historic structures, and that this represented trade routes created by ancient British societies. Independently of Watkins' ideas, a similar notion of sacred lines was put forward in 20s Germany. During the 60s, Watkins' ideas were revived and altered from form by British proponents of the countercultural Earth Mysteries movement. In 1961, Tony White proposed the belief that prehistoric communities established key lines to guide spacecraft. This view was promoted to a wider audience in the books of John Michael, particularly in his 1969 work, The View on Atlantis. Michael's publications were accompanied by the launch of Law Hunter magazine, the emergence of a community of law hunters, ley hunters eager to identify ley lines in the British landscape. The ley hunters often combined their search for ley lines with other esoteric practices such as dowsing and numerology, and with faith in the new time of the age of Aquarius that would transform human society. Meditation. Practically all the lower vibrational energies which emanate from the brutal slaughter of so many sentient beings every minute is the same nourishment for the parasitic entities, and also hold this planet hostage. Without these energies, they would quickly starve to death, and the planetary energy grid would receive a sudden and unprecedented boost of positive energy. In combination with meditation, such a situation would help to resurrect the planet's suffering in a very short time, and all living beings would instantly receive a major improvement in their overall well-being. There are many sources of loss on the surface of this planet. However, the planetary energy grid is constantly wakened by the violent killing of so many sentient beings that takes place 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, on a massive scale. Becoming aware and doing our part to improve this situation would also help the forces of light to accelerate the process of recovery of the planetary surface grid relationship. Example of human compassion. A cat asks for medical help at a clinic. A cat brought her 3 kittens who were having difficulty opening their eyes to a medical facility and meowed for help. The feline showed up in the morning in a health clinic in the city of Izmir, Turkey, seeking professional help for her kittens. She carried them one by one, clutching their necks to the facility. The mother cat began to call for assistance, mewing non-stop. The cat caught the attention of the doctors, who, realizing that the kittens needed help, gave them a medical examination. The medical staff noticed the infection in the kittens' eyes. The little ones received treatment, and after a few drops, they were finally able to open their eyes. The employees revealed that it wasn't an unknown cat. They fed the animal, which lives in a nearby street, but didn't know that she had given birth. According to the health workers, this is the first time something like this has happened to them. They were thrilled to see the cat with the recovery kittens. After providing them with medical care and initial treatment, the staff redirected the felines to the local veterinary service, where they received the necessary care and put the family up for adoption. Solution: food and high vibrational bodies are repelling negative entities from our field. All living things are biologically composed of 70% to 90% water. The energies of our thoughts, words, emotions, actions, and the food we consume affect our physical cells, our energy fields, and the planetary energy grid in equal measure, as Masaru Emoto's experiments have shown. The terror energy experienced by the countless sentient beings going through the killing process affect the molecular and energetic form of the blood of the food that human beings ingest. In this age of information and knowledge, anyone can access throughout the internet all the necessary information on how our food choices affect us, the beings around us, and the planet. There are many resources to help with a healthier and more compassionate life transition until the food replicators arrive. The Vegan Living link on this site is filled with many useful resources to help anyone begin their own journey to a cruelty-free lifestyle. For some, it takes longer than others. However, it is important that we all start somewhere. The law of one encompasses the necessary principles of behavior, practices, and belief systems that humankind must learn in order to achieve spiritual freedom and sovereignty by committing to re-educate themselves to expand consciousness into higher frequency realities that will allow them to progress into future timelines during the ascension cycle. The war against life will be over. May all beings be free. May compassion fill the world. Victory to life. Tachyon Chamber. Pleiadians and other cosmic civilizations of light uses tachyons as a basic source of energy, as a source of hyperdrive energy for their spacecraft by creating hyperspace wormholes for healing, information transmission, and for other purposes. The tachyon belt now surrounds our planet. Note that tachyon chambers are not medical beds. Holographic beds were developed by Resistance in the late 70s and early 80s with the help of the Andromedans, and will only be available for the surface population after the event. High energy cosmic rays enter this solar system from interstellar space and carry tachyons with them. Some of these tachyons reach the surface of our planet throughout a hyperdimensional wormhole they have created with a quartz oscillator crystal aboard the Genesis 2 spacecraft, and these tachyons can be used in a tachyon healing chamber that has been developed in cooperation with the Pleiadians. This special chamber allowed the arrival of tachyons from higher dimensions than physical matter. Tachyons have an extraordinary harmonizing effect. They can completely harmonize all energy fields resulting from gravity, electromagnetism, and the weak nuclear force. This is practically reflected in a multitude of forms. Tachyon energy harmonizes and gives life to the energetics matrix that shapes all matter and therefore also our mental, emotional, etheric, and physical bodies. All this greatly affects our physical well-being, since it harmonizes all electromagnetic emissions. It is also an excellent protection against all forms of electromagnetic pollution. A healing session inside the tachyon chamber lasts 20 minutes and has irreversible positive effects on all aspects of our being. Planet of the Apes. China is creating an army of hybrid humanoids to conquer the world, similar to those seen in the movie Planet of the Apes, according to April 1st situation update by Mike Adams. According to the UK's The Sun newspaper, China has become a dumping ground for horrific genetic experiments that combine human genes with chimpanzees and other primates to create a planet of the apes, like hybrid specimens. The long-term goal is to genetically engineer a race of obedient humanoid hybrid super soldiers who have the insane strength of apes and enough intelligence and obedience to follow orders and carry weapons. Ape-human hybrids, enhanced pathogens, head transplant, and gene editing are just some of the tests Chinese scientists are known to have carried out, reports The Sun. The CCP is known to have been conducting all sorts of dangerous and ethically controversial research that may not be allowed in Western countries. Because the CCP has no ethics and no regard for morality, compassion, or the value of life, China has become the choice for mad science experiments that can trigger devastating consequences for humankind. Also today, Patrick Byrne makes a statement about stunning new evidence to be released soon, which he says could possibly put DT back in the White House later this year. Apparently, there is irrefutable evidence of entrapment that cannot be suppressed, but we will have to wait and see exactly what it is. The author of the book, It Is Not just Soros, calls for a common effort against globalism. Every day more evident emerges of the totalitarian essence of the old globalist system, a threat denounced in the book It Is Not Just Soros by Spaniard Juan Antonio de Castro, where the author explained how the globalist oligarchy advances in imposing a single vision of the world. Attacks on the press. What does the US report say about the Spanish government attacks on the press? The annual report of human rights carried out in the US denounces that the Spanish press suffered attacks by the government, highlighting phrases by Pedro Sánchez, Pablo Iglesias, and Vox. The US suspends the government of Spain in its report on human rights. It considers that the press suffered repeated attacks by the executive, according to the head of US diplomacy, Anthony Blinken. The report highlights in the section of freedom of the press that in Spain there were multiple verbal attacks by government officials against specific media outlets and journalists. Not only that, but it gives several examples. One of them is the statement made by the president of the government, Pedro Sánchez, on March 1st, 2020, when he accused the media of agitating society every time the parties they support lose an election. On the same day, the report notes Pablo Iglesias affirmed that the press critical of the government had offended the dignity of journalism. In addition, in the same month, the secretary of Podemos threatened to send a journalist to prison for publishing compromising information about his party's financing. These facts were denounced by the Madrid Press Association. The report doesn't only refer to members of the coalition government, but also to other parties. In this sense, it highlights repeated attacks against the media by the Vox party, which carried out verbal and physical attacks against the reporters during May protests across the country against government policies. In addition to those referring to politics, the 2019 report of the International Federation of Journalists warns that Catalonia is one of the autonomous communities most dangerous for journalists. On a general note, the document states that in Spain there were no reports of significant human rights abuses during 2020, although corruption is a problem in the country. Theories about the monolith of Uranus. At Advertising or Aliens, the most original theories about the mysterious monolith of Girona. The last monolith was found on a beach in Girona, but many others have been appearing around the world. They are mysterious metallic monoliths that appear overnight and whose origin remains a mystery. No one knows how it got there. It is completely stuck in the sand, and its height and weight mean that it cannot be moved easily. Many approach to contemplate it, photograph it, and even touch it to make sure it is real. In short, the eyes of the neighbors are now on the mysterious monolith. In quotes, "It comes for the center of the earth," said one of the visitors. Another assures that it is possible that it is extraterrestrial, questioning whether a person is capable of supporting such weight. There are also the more skeptical who dismiss the alien idea, and some believe that it may be a strategy or advertising campaign. Once again, the debate about the true origin of the monoliths has been reopened. Many people relate this new monolith to the similar structure described in the popular movie 2001 Space Odyssey. In Stanley Kubrick's film, the appearance of a monolith is related to the presence of extraterrestrial on Earth, and it always appears on a great change of evolution. The structure was a tool created by an extraterrestrial race, according to some opinions, to investigate worlds throughout the galaxy and help species evolve intelligently. That said, experts in the field believe that humankind is approaching the moment of extraterrestrial revelation, and this crucial first contact could change the entire course of mankind. They also allege that governments are aware of the extraterrestrial presence on our planet. Sweden cancels Bill Gates' funded experiment to duck the sun under the guise of combating alleged climate change amid outcry from activists. Sweden's space agency cancelled a geoengineering experiment to determine whether blanketing the sun with aerosols could reverse alleged global warming over fierce opposition from environmental groups. Proposed by Harvard University researchers, the stratospheric controlled perturbation experiment ultimately planned to release a cloud of calcium carbonate, more commonly known as chalk dust, into the atmosphere from a high-altitude balloon to study its effects on sunlight reaching the Earth. However, the project proved too controversial, and on Wednesday, the Swedish Space Corporation said it wouldn't move forward with the test flight scheduled for June. Ridiculous. Biden signs order for dogs to wear masks and gender change. In breaking news, Biden has signed an executive order to allow pets to wear masks and jewelry at dog shows. This comes by way of a petition from new members of the numerous dog clubs across the country. The Poodle Association of America and the Dog Breeders Association of America jointly petitioned the president for the federal level exemption for all dog shows scheduled for this year. Since the advancement of the transgender doctrine as a driving force for equality, the trans community wanted to extend that privilege to their favorite pet poodles, Dutch Hunts, and other breeds. Excuse me. A clause in the executive order also covered the cost of gender changes for the dogs, including psychological profiling, counseling, surgery, post-operative care, and ongoing care after the sex change, with additional counseling to ensure the pets have an appropriate new charge. It also covers the cost of owner trauma caused by this gender change and covers the costs of counseling, transportation to various approved facilities with their pets, housing, food, incidental expenses, and entertainment expenses. Short news. More than 1,000 fines by the civil guard on Spain's roads during Monday, Thursday. Guardia Civil officers, or civil guards officers, issued a total of 1,000 and 160 proposed fines to people attempting to break perimeter road closures during Maundy Thursday. The post-Brexit immigration regime created by Boris Johnson's government for European Union nationals settled in the United Kingdom threatens to become a digital bomb capable of pulverizing the rights of the most vulnerable, according to the group, the 3 million. The United Nations recommends debt relief in 14 South American countries. In a report, the organization classifies 72 economies as vulnerable and assures that debt in these countries will probably remain high for years. Among the debt-vulnerable countries in South America and the Caribbean, the agency highlights El Salvador, Honduras, Costa Rica, Venezuela, Ecuador, Bolivia, Belice, Nicaragua, Argentina, Granada, Jamaica, Haiti, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Malvinas, a wound that remains latent in every corner of Argentina. It has been just 39 years since the war, and in every town in Argentina, no matter how small, there is still at least one wall painted with the intricate silhouette of islands whose surface is filled with the Argentine flag, and each graffiti slogan, the Malvinas are Argentinians. Las Malvinas son argentinas. U.S. caught largest number of migrants in 2 decades. U.S. authorities caught more than 171,000 migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border in March, the highest monthly total in 2 decades and the latest sign of the growing humanitarian challenge. There will be no aid for Marshall Plan for Central American and Chiapas immigration. The outbreak of the cross-border crisis is leading to a hardening of the administration, which contemplates restrictions and conditions that are impossible to apply. With its rickety $4 billion of federal aid, when the northern triangle of Chiapas deserve a Marshall Plan to alleviate the causes of immigration, according to Alfredo Jalife Rame. Russia rejects sending troops to Ukraine. The Kremlin expressed its rejection of the eventual dispatch of U.S. military to Ukraine and warned that it will be forced to take additional measures in this case to ensure Russia's security. Biden offers Ukraine unwavering support in standoff with Russia. The U.S. president used a first official phone call with President Zelensky on Friday to offer unconditional support in Ukraine's standoff over Russian troops near its border. Economy. First glimpses of the implementation of the new quantum financial system QFS. Russia's central bank is taking steps toward a digital ruble underpinned by 2 layers, with banks opening digital wallets with the regulator and serving as intermediaries with customers and companies. In short, the talk of the new quantum financial system, according to Rafapal. Digital dollar, ruble and yuan. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen said she supports research into the feasibility of a digital dollar. This could be the digitization of the currency issued by the Federal Reserve in order to free it from systemic risks without the need to have a bank account. On the other hand, the Central Bank of Russia will begin pilot tests for its digital ruble at the end of the year. On the other hand, China is testing the new government-backed digital yuan in several regions of the country in order to replace the banknotes and coin in circulation. Iridium has risen 131% in value since the beginning of January, outpacing Bitcoin's 85% gain. Iridium, one of the rarest precious metals, mined as a byproduct of platinum and palladium, has overtaken Bitcoin in the rate of value growth in 2021. Science. Scientists create a new generation of living robots that can heal themselves and record memories. Specialists indicate that these so-called xenobots may be used in the future to search for particles contaminated with radiation, pick up microplastics in the oceans, or travel throughout arteries and clean them. A group of US scientists used stem cells from frogs of the species Xenopus laevis to create a new generation of living robots that can heal themselves and even record memories, reports Tufts University. The universe is not as we imagined. A new study from the University of Copenhagen suggests that the expansion of the universe is due to a dark substance with a kind of magnetic force. If their model is true, it means that dark energy simply doesn't exist. It is currently believed that 70% of the universe is composed of dark energy, a substance that makes it possible for the universe to expand at an ever-increasing rate. However, a new study by researchers at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark proposes a model in which dark energy is replaced by dark matter in form of magnetic forces. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.